You push the button.
I pushed the button. We are live.
We are live.
You know, it's kind of scary. It's a red button. You're not supposed to press the red button.
Only once. Make it count.
I mean, and we didn't blow up, and here we are. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Zocalo. We are your one-stop shop for talking all things Babylon 5 here Sundays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And for those of you in other time zones, I apologize if it's way too late. Hi, Terry. I'm specifically talking to you.
Yeah, hi, Terry.
Who's not here because he's over the pond and it's somewhat late there. He's probably sleeping. However, he does get to participate in this show because we have quite a few notes from him that he has generously contributed for this show.
Yes, he did. And
so,
it's
thank you.
Yeah, we're compelled to talk about some of Terry's notes because they are pretty thorough.
It's good stuff. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and if you want to follow Terry Jones, he is B5 historian, and he's true to the name. This guy knows more Babylon 5 and more detail than I think anybody besides Joe.
Probably. Most likely, yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
In some cases, has even corrected Joe.
He is that guy who can and get away with it. Yes. I believe, in fact, we read one of the emails that he shared with us last week where he got something wrong in the short Ivanova and Marcus story. And Joe said, oh, whoops. Yep, you got that on me. Whoopsie.
Yeah,
even the great maker makes mistakes every now and then.
He misnamed Susan's father Petrov instead of Andrei, right?
Right. That's it. Yeah. So, whoopsie daisies. What do you do?
You're right. The great maker does make mistakes. It's called the shadows. Oh, what? Funny enough. So I'm playing this video game called Wolson, and I've progressed into this game, and it got to the point where all my B5 ears just kind of perked up.
Okay.
Because during a line of dialogue, I'm supposed to save these soldiers from this wall of energy, and they explain this whole story, and they're like, he goes, and this began the Shadow War. I'm like, the what?
Yeah, say what now? Who?
Yeah, it's like the Shadow War. I'm like, I'm fighting against Shadow? Sweet.
Oh my.
It was more kind of like fantasy Shadow as opposed to like Zahadum Shadow.
Oh, that's a little disappointing. Also disappointing was that B5 video game we never got.
Oh, I know.
You can listen to parts of the soundtrack, though, on YouTube if you seek that out.
Did Frankie do the soundtrack?
I don't remember.
He probably did. And if he didn't, he should have.
I would wager that he did.
Right.
But I don't know that for a fact, so don't quote me.
That would have been cool. Just think if they did that now. Just think if they did VR, like walk through the station.
That would be badass.
Right? So when I was at Roddenberry Studio, they do this thing, I think, every Thursday night called Sansar VR.
Okay.
And you put on the VR goggles and you put on the whole VR system, like the Oculus, or you could do it just from your desktop. But it is literally a 1-for-1 in scale ship. I don't know how else to put it.
Is it the Enterprise bridge? What is it?
So you started off in, I think I started off in some type of kind of like ready room. Right.
Okay.
And this is next generation.
Okay.
Then you go into you saw like kind of like the interlocking doors, they open up, you go into the hallway, and it has kind of like all that really nice kind of TNG-ish kind of look to it. You go into a turbo lift, you see the controls, you hit the controls, you go out and it's everything's like unrealistically realistic. You know what I mean?
That's super cool. You're basically walking around on a ship. Yeah.
And my biggest issue with that was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the psychological, I think it's like a psychological situation called the uncanny valley.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. So have you ever seen something that you think is so real that your mind doesn't want to believe it's real? Like a computer generated graphic, or like an Android, something like that.
Okay.
Like it's so good looking that you're like, no, this can't possibly be real. There's something that happens where your brain protects itself from misunderstanding reality. And I'm no psychologist, folks, so don't send me any emails, but But what it is that you know for a fact that what you're seeing isn't real, but it looks so real that your brain's like, no, something's wrong. So you get
Huh.
this kind of like a paranoid feeling, like this isn't right. So it triggers fight or flight.
Oh, wow. Because you don't trust it.
You don't trust it. Your brain's saying
Huh?
your eyes are saying no, this is real, but your brain is
It's
kicking in
saying
saying
no.
that it's not, and something's dangerous. But I can't tell you what it
Wow.
is. Yeah.
I'll be damned. That
Yeah.
sounds really interesting. I know what I'm going to go look up now when we're done with the show. But I
So
suppose we ought to do the show.
we should. I just had to bring that up.
We ought to start the show. We've got some people watching now. Hello, everybody. Please say hi. Let us know that you're here.
Who here?
I don't know. I just see the numbers, but I don't see people making comments. So you guys know what to do.
Say hi.
Yeah, say hi. I'm Shar. You're
I'm-
Norm, and we're talking about Sinclair and Sakai, the original power couple.
That's right.
Before there was Sheridan and Delenn, and before Ivanova and Marcus, and Lita and Zach and Kosh, or any of the pairings that you prefer in the fanfic universe, there were these two.
They were like the first true, I guess, like executive couple, right?
Executive couple. That's a very good way of putting it, because when you think power couple, you're thinking like real solid, like the Beyonce and Jay-Z, the Obamas, Sheridan and Delenn, if you're looking for a B5 reference, that sort of thing. Now, I don't know if I'd call them a power couple, just because Sinclair and Sakai were really on again, off again for a good long while. But in terms of like, power and position, yeah, executive.
Well, he was the executive governor in charge of Babylon 5. When she came on board, they rekindled their romance-ish, right?
Right. And she's off doing her thing and making a name for herself as well.
I have something that I find very interesting about their couple and another Deep Space franchise that I'm watching right now.
Oh, and I can't imagine what that would be based on your shirt.
That would be Star Trek Voyager. So, no, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, wait a minute. Now I kind of know you haven't watched much Voyager.
I have not. I'm waiting. I'm saving up all of my Voyager enthusiasm for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I can tell you all about it in real time. I will live tweet you in real time.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking
when you're
about,
a little busy with Mission Log right now in Deep Space Nine.
But I'll eventually get to it. Eventually.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. It's for Mission Log, if nothing else.
So I'm talking about Captain Sisko and Captain Cassidy Yates.
Oh, another good power couple. And they're very much like this. He's in charge of a station. Sinclair's in charge of a station. Yates is a shipping maven. And Sakai is making her big Quantum 40 discovery.
Yep. So she's a captain of her own ship. She's built her own business. She's an independent contractor.
Sounds familiar.
Just a little. Except that Catherine came in season 1, and Cassidy came in what, season 3, 4? End of season 3, something.
One of those two.
Yeah. So when Deep Space Nine finally started to really appropriate Babylon 5, it came about 2 seasons later.
Yeah, sure. Let's not get into that argument, shall we?
That will be a show, because I want to tackle that.
We'll have to. Well, yeah, that's going to be like, what, a 20-part deep dive someday? Ugh.
Oh, at least. And
I get a headache just thinking about it.
Well, I mean, it's not like that we're saying anything that I think is controversial, because based on Joe's autobiography, Becoming Superman, he lays out in detail what happened during that time. So it wasn't like some nefarious act. It could have been. It was just one of those, he pitched it, nothing happened. It was on a shelf. They kind of looked at it. They're like, Then
what can we do?
And then he went along with this thing. And you know what? I really do think that it was just an entire network snafu.
I think it's a whole series of kind of, snafus, misunderstandings, missteps, maybe. A lack of communication, I think, had a lot to do with it. And I don't know, that's probably kind of is par for the course between studios. And I imagine stuff like this happens more often than we realize. Hate to say it.
Oh, I totally believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're all just so busy, and they're so busy doing their thing, and people are pitching shows to multiple studios, hoping that somebody will bite. And, well, yeah. So, as unfortunate as that is.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yeah,
Sinclair
we're really good at digressing today. We're 10 minutes into the show, and I need to digress just a shred more in talking about a previous show.
Yes.
because I have a note from Terry saying, "Hey, when you guys talked about unrequited love, you barely even brought up Malcolm Biggs, who was one of Ivanova's loves, who came onto the station in the war prayer, and turned out he was home guard and was just kind of trash and not good at all." And I think my bias is what sort of led that into being, because I don't like this guy. I think he's kind of a D-bag. And even though she might have felt intense love for him and cried after the relationship was done, I have a hard time with the unrequited part of it. Now,
Well,
is
I'm
it
sure.
thankless and then like they give each other or give themselves for a while and they try to make it work and it doesn't work because they were on differing career paths and neither was willing to budge, and so then they go. But I don't like the guy. He's creepy and gross.
Well, the more that we learned of him, obviously, the less we liked. But I'm sure
Mhm.
that when it first started, he was this kind of suave, probably older man.
I don't know if he was
You
older,
know?
but he was probably, I would say, I mean, they seem to me fairly close in age, where
Yeah.
they're both young and bright and stars on their career paths. They're going to be going places. Maybe they would have been a power couple had their career paths aligned a little better. But
Yeah.
he was going to go his way. She was going to go hers. Neither was willing to compromise for one another. And ultimately, the relationship broke down as a result.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in your 20s, and I don't know for sure if this was Ivanova's first love, but it was probably maybe one of the more serious relationships she was in. The first time you really experience the falling out of something like that, yeah, it hurts. It hurts a lot. You feel that loss.
Yeah. I always thought that he was just like a couple years. It's kind of like maybe like the college senior and the high school senior kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, you think, okay, so maybe no more
Somewhere in
than a
like,
few years.
yeah, not talking like, Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, that kind of,
No, 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 no. No, not
60-year-old
even
age
close.
difference, something like that.
No. Okay, so maybe he was a little bit her senior, but even so,
Yeah.
they were probably somewhat compatible then.
Mhm.
But then life ultimately drove them apart, took them to different places, and then when they reunite, they're on different planets.
Oh, they're totally on different pages. They're on
Yeah.
different books. They're on different libraries.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if
So if you were wondering why I didn't really bring that up, it was really more my fault just because I don't like this guy, and screw him. I'm glad that didn't work out.
we were really focusing on like Marcus and
In Lanier.
and Lanier. Yeah, like characters that, we care about.
Yes, yes. Well, and speaking of Lanier, Terry did bring up another point where Minbari culture works in threes, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So he got me wondering, are Minbari relationships trios? Because Delenn says on Minbar, three is sacred.
Right.
Does that mean three to a relationship? Because I never fully got that inclination, but maybe Delenn knows that it's going to be her and John or not at all. Because I don't think John would be down with that.
Well, I think he said that, right? He's like, "Oh, I'm not ready for that yet."
Something, yeah,
Right?
something to that effect. But I mean,
Yeah.
even without saying it, I think she kind of knows that humans by and large
Mhm.
are monogamous.
Yeah. Yeah. And being, this hybrid Minbari human ambassador and kind of like this representative of this bridging of two cultures, I don't think she really wanted to upset that apple cart. But
Mhm.
it would it have been called a Minbari à trois?
A bon à toi, maybe?
I, you know,
I don't know. We really don't have enough context of
a bon
Minbari
à trois.
relationships to know exactly how that works with them. But he got me thinking on that front, and I just kind of wondered, do Minbari relationships work in threes as opposed to twos?
That's a good question. Unless we actually are considering three parties being physical parties as opposed to one person's soul, the other person's soul, and the joining of the two souls.
Oh, and now you bring up the fact that this could get very complicated.
See what I mean? That is a three.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, religiously speaking, it's kind of like, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, even though they're all the same
sure,
entity, right?
sure. And that might be, but we
And
don't know.
we don't know. Good question. I'm sure the listeners have a very good answer. I'm sure Terry might have
Yeah,
one too.
please chime in with your thoughts. I'm curious to know where do your minds go on that?
Bon à
So,
toi.
Yeah, the bonatoire.
The bonatoire. That should go on a t-shirt.
That sounds like a porno.
We're talking threesomes here, right?
Right? So, I mean, it's very easy to go there. All right. Again, that's not what we're talking about this week. We are talking Sinclair and Sakai. And why don't we get into that, shall we?
We shall.
Okay. So, in doing a little bit of research for this show, I learned quite a bit mostly about Catherine Sakai, because a lot of what we get on the show is just, I think, a sliver of what you can learn elsewhere. And most of my information comes from Terry and the B5 Encyclopedia. I think a lot of information is implied, but without that reading, I don't think I fully grasped the concept because I had a lot of questions about Sakai until today. So going in, I'll share what I know and then I'll share kind of what I've learned. We do know that they've had an on-again, off-again relationship for about 15 years.
Yes.
And they've kind of done this song and dance where they reunite and have a good time, and then something drives them apart, or they fight and they break up, or what have you, and then they're gone for a little while. They come back. You know, life just keeps putting these two together. The universe is trying to tell them something until in the Parliament of Dreams, where they do reunite on Babylon 5 and make a little more of it. Eventually, Sinclair just says, "Hey, do you want to get married?"
Right.
Yeah.
Was that in Parliament of Dreams? That part?
No, that didn't happen till later. They reunite in Parliament of Dreams, and then since he is stationed on the station, she kind of tries to maybe, I think, go out of her way just a little bit to make sure she's making some stops at Babylon 5 while she has to go off and do what she's doing. And they see each other more often.
Yeah, he proposed to her in Chrysalis, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, because they were all at Fresh Air, and then Garibaldi's like, nothing happens, nothing good happens every time I go to that restaurant.
Right. Garibaldi's going to be Sinclair's best man. Ivanova is going to be the maid of honor. They're going to get married. Now, actually, one thing I did forget to ask Terry is, did they actually get married? Don't know, because here's what happens afterward is we know that Sinclair gets reassigned. I did not know that Catherine Sakai joined the Rangers shortly after Sinclair took charge of the On the Shock. And she trained under him.
Right.
I didn't know that.
That was in the comic?
Well, here's the thing is there is a comic that does address what happens, but I don't know if that specific part is in the comic. There's one thing that I do know that is in that comic, and we'll get to that when we get to that.
Okay, there's something that I wanted to bring up before you continue, because I think it's really important to see like where on the fence like a lot of the listeners are. Now, I was telling you that for me, I'm not a big fan of having to go out and continue kind of like the narrative educational process of my shows into like other forms of media, say like short stories, novels, comic books, things of that nature, because when I think about a TV show, it's like, okay, you have me at 22 episodes a season for 5, 6, 7 seasons or whatever. That's enough for me, right?
That's plenty of media to consume. And we are so spoiled in the 21st century with just a freaking garden of media to consume in every possible genre you could think of. I mean, It's just so rich. There's way too much and not nearly enough time to watch it all.
But I always feel like, say, like when I do like my reread of Lord of the Rings, which I do every so often, I'll read the appendices, and the appendices is where I will get, the history between Beren and Luthien, or Aragorn and Arwen, things of that nature, and the lineage of all of the characters. But I don't feel like I know that in some of the Star Trek podcasts that I've done, and it's probably happened to you too, where you'll talk about something, all of a sudden it's like, what, you didn't read such and such and you don't know that detail? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't. And just because I didn't bring it up, because I didn't read it, doesn't necessarily mean I don't know what I'm talking about in this context, because what we're talking about is the episode. What we're talking about are the events that happened on the screen where you saw it and I saw it. But if you want to go out and do your extraneous research, that's on you, right? But I don't think that it's necessarily fun. Yeah.
Some
It's not.
people are completionists and they do want to consume every little aspect of it. And that's great if you can, but I really think for a lot of us, that's not completely realistic. And we do pick and choose, right? And I think our first stop is always like, what is well, especially with Star Trek, what is canon?
Yeah.
And then things get a little more complicated from there because, well, like we were talking earlier about Star Wars. Well, a lot of those novels and whatnot are canon. And
Hmm.
so it gets more complicated. And then in the Star Trek universe, the novels they're all over the place
Right.
because they get to do whatever they want.
Right. Right. Right.
And we were talking about the Picard novel that's come out, written by Una McCormick, which I hear is very good and gives a lot of little details that help kind of, I don't know, enrich what you see on screen. And a lot of people are saying, gosh, I really wish I didn't have to read the book just to understand the series that much better.
Right. Exactly. And just
Yeah.
before you jump back in, a friend of mine who is a really big fan of the series, he has the DVDs, and that's good for him.
Uh-huh.
We were talking about. He goes, whatever happened to Marcus, and I told him, what happened to Marcus. It's like, well, where do you find that? And it's not his fault that he can't find it because, or not talk about it. But he shouldn't feel embarrassed about not being able to talk about it.
No, and really, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have as a fan. Somebody out there, chances are, knows more than you, and that doesn't lessen your own status as a fan.
Yeah.
If you like something, you're a fan. It doesn't matter how much or how little of it you've seen.
But to your point, if you want to find any of this extra information, you can always find it where you found it, and that was the B5 Encyclopedia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there's some really good nuggets of information about Catherine Sakai. It is a short read. It's very quick, but I learned a lot from it. It made me realize just how little I knew about this character. So, am I not a fan because I didn't know everything?
You're a fan now because you read it.
Oh,
well, you're more
thank
of a
you,
fan.
gatekeeper. Thank you for letting me in.
You're a bigger fan than I am right now. I'll tell you that.
Oh, nonsense. Yeah, we don't need to get into the whole gatekeeping thing that happens with fandoms, and especially when things do get so freaking big, like Star Trek and Star Wars, and especially when you're a fan of multiple fandoms. Oh my God, you can't keep up. Oh my God. Anyway,
Hey, Shar, do you know how you protect a gate from other fans?
How?
With a giant cannon.
Oh my God, you are just full of the corny jokes today, and I'm kind of here for it.
It's my dad coffee.
Dad coffee. We didn't toast.
We didn't toast. Maybe that's
we're
what's wrong
doing
with
the
us
show
today.
wrong.
Or very right.
I'm not sure which. You're just drinking coffee because you're going to go sword fighting later, right? Cordo Prito.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cordo Prito.
And I'm doing light brevari today because my husband is sick and I need to keep up my immunity so I don't get sick. So to that, I say, wash your hands and Valtu.
Or it could be Mr. Garibaldi's special coffee.
Num num.
Mm.
Indeed. Okay, so where were we with Sinclair and Sakai?
You're talking about what you've learned from the Babylon 5 Encyclopedia.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So we were talking about how she trained under Sinclair as a part of the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And during a training exercise in 2259, she disappears. She is presumed lost.
Really?
Yes. This was another thing I did not know. And I want to say you can get enough context in the show to realize that when Valen in the distant past has a family, it is with her. Now, she is often kind of erased from that history as the outcast because the Minbari gatekeepers, if you will, don't want to talk about that because she's human.
Right.
Yes, but apparently that was her, and where she went when she disappeared was to the distant past. Hello, Sector 14, and weird timey-wimey things.
Sector 14.
And so, in the comic book, the thing that Terry confirmed that was true is Sinclair says a line, and I'll let me look this up real quick so I make sure I don't get this wrong. He says, "I've got her." Well, he means he's found Catherine Sakai in the 13th century.
What?
They're reunited. Yep, they're reunited, and then they eventually have a family. And then so the children of Valen are their children. You didn't know that either? I don't feel bad now.
No, but it's I didn't. But the other thing is that Sinclair is Minbari, not of Minbari, right?
Right. Yes.
He was transformed by the chrysalis on Babylon 4 going back in time.
Uh-huh. Now, she did not go into the
Right,
chrysalis.
which makes her fully human,
Mhm.
right?
So a lot of their children are a little more human than Minbari, then, if that makes any sense.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking. When Sinclair was turned into Valen, he wasn't human and Minbari. He was Minbari, right?
Not fully. It's sort of like Delenn, where she's got both Minbari and human characteristics. She is just human enough to have a child with a human. I think that's essentially what happened with Sinclair becoming just Minbari enough
so that people
to
would accept him as being this
yes,
because that's right, because like they would never have accepted a human being in charge of the station. They would have to accept Minbari.
Exactly.
Right. So by the math, because you can't really do genetics by math, but if you want to, by the math, their children would have been 2/3 human, 1/3 Minbari.
Right. So this was incredibly scandalous in its day, was it not?
It should have been. I'm sure
I imagine
it
was incredibly scandalous, and they tried as hard as they could to bury it under the rug.
Well, and then their
They
children
still Valen, so they can't just totally ignore it.
Right. Like it's kind of like wow, they're really teetering close on if Jesus and Mary Magdalene had children, which is a certain belief system. If you believe in like the last scion and the children of, well, when Mary Magdalene was taken and hidden by the Medici and blah 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 blah, supposedly that since Jesus was human or God in human form and he had a child with a human, that child would have had godlike powers of some kind.
And Joe being, not a biblical scholar, but certainly knowing his Bible, I wonder if he's pulling from that at all.
But so all of the souls that were being murdered by other Minbari were the souls of the descendants of Sakai and Sinclair.
Yeah. At least in part, yeah.
Yeah, because they are human and Minbari souls.
Uh-huh. So that bridge, started a long, long time ago. Yeah. And so then when the Minbari beamed him up and found out that he had, the symbol lighting up, they're like, oh crap.
Oh, I mean, using
hence ending the Minbari War. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Confirmation that yes, this really has been happening, and it's been happening for a while.
Huh. That's interesting. What else happened? So what happens was, just gonna be like, see if I can get this whole thing down.
Do it.
So in Parliament of Dreams, we're talking about, like, if we're not looking at the past, we're looking at, that's the beginning of our timeline understanding of their relationship. So Catherine Sakai,
it is for us.
Comes on the station. Garibaldi kind of freaks out, tells Jeff, like, hey, Catherine's on board. And then they finally get together.
Immediately,
yeah, he's like, oh, takes his comment off, sticks in his pants. Your pants are talking to you. But they kind of rekindle their relationship, and over the course of the back half of the first season, they end up becoming a couple. And then whoosh, the president's assassinated. Garibaldi's put into a coma.
Yeah, it's all gone to hell.
Sinclair gets reassigned to Minbar as ambassador, and then Catherine Sakai, they're engaged, she goes to train with him on Minbar with the Rangers.
So there's a little detail in between. After Sinclair goes basically to Earth, from what I understand, to talk with President Clark, who says, you have a new appointment via the Minbari to be the new ambassador. You are allowed to live there. You're the bridge, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. She, being on her expedition, comes back to Babylon 5 to realize he's no longer there, is reassigned, and catches up with him.
Okay.
Which, I know communications, in interstellar space are not the easiest thing in the world, but wouldn't you tell your fiancé where you are?
You would think.
I'm just saying. Yeah. So, this is a really interesting relationship to me, just because it is a reminder to me that relationships come in all sorts of forms, and what works for one couple doesn't work at all for another. These two do not have a relationship like Sheridan and Delenn.
Yeah.
it's completely different.
Right.
But it works for them. I mean, in some weird dysfunctional way, like with the whole on again, off again thing, it still works.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they don't really have to say like, hey, if you don't call me in the next 2 months, what's up?
They
Like
just pick
nothing.
right back up, and
Yeah,
it's
like,
fine.
remember? Like what part was it that you left? It's like, you left last time. No, you left last time. Was it me?
They can't even keep track anymore. It's happened so many times. Yeah. But
Right.
I can't imagine Sheridan not calling in. Delenn would be furious.
And she would send out like rangers to go find him.
Yeah, she would send Marcus to track his ass down and beat the crap out of him, rightfully so.
Unless he's caught on a striped ship, then she, then he's already getting beat down.
True enough. True enough. Then he's getting enough beating for everybody. Yes. So, it's a strange thing where they have this long history and they have intimacy between the two of them, but it's not a thing where they have to know what's happening between them at all times,
Whoops.
all day.
I'm trying to find this. I'm sure that we have comments that we can't see. And
Guys, I'm sorry if you guys are making comments. They're not coming through right now, and I'm wondering if it's a Be Live issue because I imagine you guys are throwing some really good stuff at us like you always do, and we're not seeing it. It makes me sad.
Well, I just popped over to YouTube and I can't see the chat there either. I don't know why.
Huh. I wonder, is it broke?
Somebody
tell us on Twitter if you would, please. Hit me up. My handle is the profanity. Let me know.
Yeah.
You can just at me real quick because, that's kind of sad. We could be having a really lively discussion, even more than what we're having. And damn it.
Yeah.
Technology sometimes.
Sector 14.
Sector 14.
When
always meddling with things.
Right.
Rude. Anyway. So another like little random detail before we keep going is I did not realize that Sakai had been married before she was involved with Sinclair.
I read that.
She apparently was married, lost a child, and that sent her into a really deep depression, which ultimately ended that marriage. And then she joined up in Earth Force and trained under Sinclair as a pilot.
Trained under Sinclair before she was a ranger.
Yes. Yeah. This was another thing I did not know. Was that she was in Earth Force. And that's how they met.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was the older man then.
He was.
Yeah, so he was a
cradle robber.
Yeah. Shades of kind of like, don't stand so close to me, please.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I had no idea that was how they met. I mean, it makes sense. And apparently this came from things like script drafts and cut footage and production documents that I guess we didn't need the context for that, but I find that fascinating. I was glad to learn that sort of thing. Well, I love behind the scenes stuff.
I have to believe that if Michael O'Hare was able to continue and we were able to see Sinclair's full storyline kind of unfold, probably a lot of these things would have come to light. Because if Joe's, if he's good at any one great thing in his writing career, he really knows how to flesh out his characters from the very beginning.
It's true. And you're probably right, is we would have gotten those details eventually, but not.
Yeah. So now they just kind of like leak out every once in a while, like maybe from like B5, like on B5 Lurker's Guide or in the encyclopedia and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to read the B5 encyclopedia, people. It's good stuff. Yeah, and you got to have friends like Terry.
Oh yeah, Terry. He's a walking, talking B5 encyclopedia.
He really is. His memory is so extensive. He's been involved with this show for I don't even know how long, but it's been a lot, long time.
So what else you got there from the encyclopedia?
Okay, so let's see. We talked about her coming into the past. Apparently, Sinclair helped find her with a certain tachyon, kind of like reading that he knew was distinctively her ship.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a beacon.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And so that's how he found her and reunited with her. Other than that, I think we've just about covered all of his points. I'll check one more time.
So he was actively looking for her with basically trying to find her homing signal on her ship.
Well, I don't know if he was actively looking for her, but when he came across it, he realized, oh my God, there she is.
Was it in the summer or in the fall?
I'm not sure. And summer or fall where? On Minbar, on Earth? I
Right.
mean, this can get very complicated. I'm not sure. The information's not that specific.
Oh, too bad.
Maybe they had to break with tradition. Yeah.
Now I'm really gonna have to like find these books. So there were references in the comic books, and then there was reference of her in a novel, wasn't there?
You know what? That's what I always thought, was that there was something in any of the B5 novels, which I have not fully read, obviously, that addressed their relationship, told us kind of what happened. No, apparently that was not the case. Terry said, no, what we do learn is in a comic, and then the rest of it is just from Joe and production notes and what have you.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that misconception for a long time, and I don't even know where I got that from.
Maybe we knew it came from a book. We just assumed it would have been a novel because, I mean, who reads comic books anymore? Right?
Well, I mean, I haven't gotten my hands on any B5 comics. I would gladly read them if I had them, but you know what? Right now, I'm not actively seeking them out, and I don't know how difficult they are to find. But being that they're 20-something years old, I imagine they're a rarity.
Probably.
And I'm not willing to cough up the money for them, at least not right now.
All right. So if we can't get B5 done in HD, let's see if we can get them reprinted by DC Comics. Because Warner owns that. So.
Sure, that'll be the day. I don't even know who published them.
DC Comics did.
They did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
DC
I didn't
Comics,
know if you were just like offhand saying it was.
Oh,
DC.
no. DC Comics is an affiliate of Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Warner Brothers,
that makes sense.
Warner Brothers being the license holder of Babylon 5.
I gotcha. Okay. I don't know if that'll ever happen, being B5 is under such lock and key by Warner Brothers as it is. But maybe someday in the distant future.
So let's talk about kind of like the on-screen chemistry, right? We talked about on-screen chemistry with actors and actresses before, how certain actors and actresses they just have it, like, Bruce Boxleitner and Mira Furlan, they had obvious chemistry. I think that actually almost all of the relationships on Babylon 5 had great on-screen chemistry. Did you think that Michael O'Hare and Julia Nixon had immediate on-screen chemistry?
Well, I loved the awkward chemistry that they had. And I don't know if it's just because they're very good actors or if just naturally as people, they kind of gravitated toward one another. But I did buy that they had this history, that they were on again and off again. He was so nervous to see her again.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely bought that for sure. And she is just, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
And so I guess short answer, yes. What did you think?
Oh, I think they both played it really kind of honestly, and one of the things that I was always kind of wondering was, did she know, she didn't know that he was on the station, or did she know that he was on the station and just tried to avoid him? Or just played it off as not, she didn't know? Because when you think...
That's a really good question.
When you have the relationship that they have, they're on again, off again, like 2 years, 3 years, then... I mean, do you think that they kept tabs on each other, like Facebook tabs?
That's a really tough question. I mean, I feel like you could play that either way, 50-50, where maybe they do kind of know their whereabouts and maybe they don't. I kind of got the impression that they were not really expecting to meet up with each other on Babylon 5.
I mean, according to Garibaldi, though, because you kind of like get it set up the way that Garibaldi plays it off. He's like, oh no.
Just like, oh God, not again.
Right.
Because Sinclair and Garibaldi, had the kind of like the initial part of their relationship back on Mars.
Yeah. They were bromancy.
They were totally bromancing, and maybe Garibaldi was a little jealous.
Maybe.
You never know.
It's like,
oh, her again? Get out of my way.
Yeah, everything's cool. Like, I'm cool. I'm single. I'm running security. You're cool. You're single. You're running the station. We're cool, bro. We're cool.
Yeah, bros.
Right?
Bros.
Come over and watch some Daffy Duck. Have some popcorn.
Eat some popcorn.
Right? I'll have a water. You can have a beer.
There you
Whatever.
go. There you go.
No, it's just one of those things where now knowing that she's part of kind of like this time traveling loop, I was just wondering if both Valen and Catherine Sakai put kind of like these, I don't know, kind of like these subliminal psychological telepath markers in place where they're always just kind of coming together every 2 or 3 years in this 15-year cycle.
You know,
right?
I feel like the universe itself does that work.
Do you
You
think
know,
this?
it makes people cross paths in the weirdest ways sometimes that you'd think would not happen, but it does. And when it all comes full circle, you realize, man, this was meant to happen.
So you're saying that these are kind of like just two forces in the universe that were always destined to kind of circle the same drain.
I think so. I think so.
Interesting. Okay.
What do you think, sir?
Well, I there's a lot to be said about that. It's kind of I just did this episode on Mission Log about these two Trill rejoined.
Oh, yeah,
with the Dax symbiote and the Khan symbiote. And well, I don't think that's a fair comparison because they can circle each other's lives because the symbiotes are still alive, right? They still are in the same linear timeline together. So, but it goes back to the whole, are there souls in the universe that are just, for some odd reason, like linked together by some type of circumstance, whether it's fate or energy or destiny, however you want to call it. But it seems that because of what we see, we start here in 2257, 58, and then they meet, and then they go all the way back to, well, she goes all the way back to like what, the 1300s, you said?
Yeah, I mean, when she gets caught into the timey-wimey trap, that's where they reunite.
Right.
In the 1200s. Right. On our calendar, anyway.
So they're destined to be in this kind of like this continual loop, right? So it's kind of like currents and eddies, just like a riptide kind of like, returning on itself.
Yeah, I mean, if you really believe in that sort of thing, they are meant to be traveling through their universe together.
Is it an endless cycle or a vicious cycle?
Probably both. I'd have to imagine that would be Sinclair's answer anyway.
Well, that's a very Minbari-ish answer.
It is.
Did you think that we had enough time with her in the first season to get a really good grasp of where she was and her relationship with Sinclair? Or do you think that the Parliament of Dreams was, they really took a huge kind of like shot at explaining their relationship. And I also like how it's kind of paralleled with the whole, what was it, the Minbari like mating ritual or the marriage ritual?
Yeah, with like the little cherry kind of creations, taste of it.
Yeah.
Right, which that ceremony was supposed to double as a marriage ceremony. We don't know who got married.
Hell,
who knows?
Depending on the intense exchanging of eyes or stares, heck, he could have married the entire room.
He might have,
or she might have.
I don't know, Minbari, if they are into trios, are they also into orgies? That's the next thing I need to know for my fanfic.
I've always been interested about putting our own labels on alien cultures' designs, because it's like gender to an alien race maybe doesn't exist. Sexuality to an alien race doesn't exist the way that we understand it exists.
Right. It might be completely different.
Right. So the thing with, this whole thing comes in threes. I mean, is that just us putting kind of like our spin on that?
It could be.
Right?
You could be so right. Yeah.
It's kind of like going back to this, like when Star Trek tackles interspecies relationships, and we think that since two species are of the same gender, it's not necessarily a gender related issue when it comes to them. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I got off on this subject, but no, just going back, the one thing that we never did see in Babylon 5, we never saw kind of like same with Minbari or same with Narn. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, we didn't really get enough into their culture to know a whole lot about their relationships, just generally speaking. We don't know a lot of their customs. We do know that the Minbari have a lot of rituals.
They have a ritual
involved in their courtship.
Right. They have a ritual for eating Flarn.
Right. They have a ritual for everything. Mm-hmm. For breathing, for eating, for every little movement you take.
The assassination of President Clark at the end of Chrysalis, where
you mean Santiago?
I'm sorry, what's Santiago? That's too bad it wasn't Clark.
Right.
Then we would have had no show. But you know,
Well, yeah.
when Sinclair was like there and he says no, nothing's the same anymore, I'm wondering if that just kind of like put the marriage brakes, kind of like he pumped the marriage brakes, put the marriage on hold, or put the engagement on hold there. He's
I'm
like, I don't
glad
know
you
what's going
said
on.
that. Like, wow, okay, things have totally upended in our world. Maybe we ought to hold off on the planning for a little bit, just because we never really got full confirmation. One, that yes, they did in fact get married uh, before the timey-wimey stuff.
Right.
I get the impression that that was not the case, that they were not married.
Well, I just think that looking at it from a logical perspective, since this happened to President Santiago's ship and Babylon 5 is probably going to get put like right in the middle of it, maybe he thought it was, hey, you know what, this just isn't the right time. So they built up they built up all this time, like building up this relationship and rebuilding their trust and rebuilding their passion. And he finally goes, hey, you want to get married or not? You know, he finally does it, and everything's right, set and ready to go.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, this great inconvenience of a presidential assassination just puts the kibosh on their plans.
Yep.
And maybe that's why she just took off. She's like, it's like, okay, you got to take care of the station. I got to do what I got to do. I'm going to go spend my like bucks deluxe from my Quantium 40 find.
Right. You know? Hey, look, we could talk about this later. We got things to do. And then he gets reassigned. And then, so who the freak knows?
Well, maybe she wanted to go see the first ones. I mean, remember, she did encounter the first ones.
Ooh, Zog,
yes. Zog, no.
Zog, no. Maybe.
But yeah, right. I don't know. Maybe that's like that's where I would be like interested in like reading a little bit more of what happened like right after then, as opposed to like describing what happened. You know, would have made for a great novel. Obviously, that was proven that doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah. So, and that's also why, just even in the short entry that there is of her in the B5 encyclopedia, I loved those little details. It made me realize just how little we actually learned about her in the show. And yeah, she's only around for the first season because of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you asked the question a while back of, hey, do we know enough about her to really believe this relationship? I think we know, this is so Minbari, we learn what we need to know to make all of that work. But I mean, had she been able to stick around a little more, because she just disappears from the show, right?
Right.
I would have loved to have at least known her whereabouts.
Well, I think it would have been cool if she came around, say, like the third or fourth season, and all of a sudden she was a captain of a White Star.
Wouldn't that have been badass? Because by then she might have been a ranger had she not disappeared.
Right?
Oh.
Because if he was teaching the Rangers after he left and she went to go train under him, by the time we got to World Without End 1 and 2, when we got to Sinclair again and went back to go with Balin, we know that. Oh, you know what would have been super cool? If she was the one who brought Sinclair the envelope that said opened in, 2,000 years.
Oh, that would have been, okay, that would have been the perfect cameo.
Right?
Would it have not?
Yep.
Just that one scene. We know where she is. We know what she's doing. We can get just enough context to realize what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh my God, what a missed opportunity.
You're welcome, Joe.
You know what? My headcanon, I have erased what actually happened. That is what happened. Yep. I don't care what anybody says. That's my headcanon now. I get to make it up.
It could have been cool, and it could have like just wrapped her up, like right there.
Exactly, because War Without End is all about giving Sinclair closure. You could have given her that same closure really quickly, and she is a part of him. So that would have been double cool.
Oh, and you know what? Just kind of thinking about it out loud, that could have been their sleeping in light moment where she knows that giving him this is saying goodbye to him for this lifetime.
Yeah, but they'll meet again.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? Parallels. I love them. That would have been super freaking sweet.
I'm so mad that we're not getting comments, because I know that there are comments that could be coming.
The comments have to be broken. We haven't gotten a single one, and I know there are people watching, and this makes me mad. I'm so sad. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Has anyone?
We love your participation, and you know what? It's not the same without it. It's really not.
Has anyone pinged you yet on Twitter about that?
No, I've got
No?
Twitter open, but I haven't gotten anything.
Oh, that's
So
too bad.
I'm wondering if our regulars are not here tonight and we've got people who just, you're not talking. I'm calling you out personally.
Okay, so for this, just say Zog yes or Zog no.
Yeah,
For the comment,
please. Zog
right?
yes, Zog no. That's all I need. I don't even really care who you are. Just Zog yes, Zog no.
Or left, right in a, what is it? What does Marcus say?
Left, right in a box
Right
by
in a
the
box
door.
by the door.
Yeah.
Let us know where you are.
Oh goodness. Yes. Okay. So I think we've covered all that I learned about
Mhm.
Sakai and Sinclair, the timey-wimey thing, how it all wrapped up. But for as little as that was, it was also a lot. And I just thought, that's so freaking cool.
This is the kind of thing that I think would be really interesting in a Lost Tales story.
It would have been great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there was.
And what a shame we didn't even get that.
And I know that Julia Nixon is still alive. She's still acting, I believe.
Is she?
So
Okay.
you can continue on the story with her. Obviously, we can't continue it on with Michael.
No.
But from that standpoint of what happened to Catherine Sakai, you could write her story.
Oh my God. Would that not be cool? Is to get her perspective on the whole thing.
Right.
Like talking to her, let's say in the late 1300s as an old woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the legacy she and Valen have left behind. And maybe she feels injustice at Minbari culture wanting to reject her so bad.
I wonder where she ended up when they pulled her through time. Like, did she end up on, how does that work? Like, did she end up on
I'm not
Earth
sure.
and she found him? Because it would have been really neat.
I have to imagine it was close to Minbari space.
But could you imagine if something went wrong? This is just like now doing fan fiction. If something went wrong, and then all of a sudden the Minbari talked about this outworlder, who or an outworlder who lives in solitary confinement, except for every once in a while she'll go outside and you'll see a flashing beacon of light, and then she'll go back inside, and that only happens once a day, and she's trying to make contact with hey, is anyone out there that can hear my signal? Right, but the Minbari are afraid to get near her because her ship's there, and
could be interesting.
She's fairly well defended.
Oh my God, I'm really honestly surprised that there is not more fanfic about this.
Well, there could be.
I haven't seen that much. I mean, I see a lot of Sheridan and Delenn fanfic. I see Ivanova and Marcus fanfic. I've seen a lot of other pairings, but I really don't see a whole lot of Sinclair and Sakai fanfic. I wonder why that is.
Well, I know that a lot of fans out there were obviously bigger fans of Sheridan in general, and
sure,
Delenn, so there's a very small, very kind of loyal following to Sinclair.
It's true. I mean, it's, I guess, a little more of a cult following because Sheridan is the more, I guess, if you're comparing the two, the more mainstream action hero. And he is in the majority of the show. We got to give him that.
There's that.
There's that. He is the big ultimate hero. But if you're reading the alternate version, Sinclair was supposed to be much more of the hero.
Right, right. And his storyline was supposed to wrap up in season 3 at that time, at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Sheridan was supposed to have taken over.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are people out there that are really, really good writers like yourself that should probably take on this fanfic.
You know what? I really wish I had time to write fanfic anymore, just because there's so many wonderful ideas in my head, and this is such a rich area to explore and write your own canon. It's going to take me years to do it if I do.
Or if our chat works, maybe we can do an impromptu.
Oh my God! To do. Wouldn't it be fun if our chat works, doing it line by line? Everybody contributes a little bit, and we just keep going on.
That's what I'd like to do.
That'd be so cool. Why does the chat not work? This makes me sad.
Tell you what. We'll chalk today's up for some reason we had some kind of issue. But if
it's got to be live.
Maybe.
That's the platform we use to connect our cameras, but they didn't give us a warning. There was nothing saying, "Hey, look, we're having technical difficulties."
Not that I saw, but
yeah.
Sad face. Maybe that could be our next topic for discussion. Maybe
We
you and
write
I,
fanfic.
but in particular, this fanfic.
Well, should we do a little bit of a poll? Like, should we have people write in and say, hey, yeah, I'd be interested? Or, like, should we wait and
I
get
think a
some
poll.
feedback? Because
I,
if people aren't interested in it, we shouldn't do it.
I think a poll would be a good idea, and I also think an ask us anything would also be a good idea.
Maybe we do a little bit of both. Yeah, maybe we do the poll through our Zocalo Twitter account, see if there is an interest. And if not, we scratch it. But then, yeah, maybe next week we kind of couple both of those ideas, the AMA as well as the fanfic. And we have a lot of freaking fun and drink a lot of Brevari.
Yeah, because next week I can, just not today.
Yeah, not today. You got to go to sword practice.
Fairly soon. Yeah, but that's okay. So one last thing that I wanted to bring up about this relationship.
Do it.
Just in terms of the way that, I mean, obviously it's important to us and maybe it's important to some of the fans, but do you think that it would have been important to have added into Sinclair's storyline at all?
Added what exactly?
Her.
I'm at a loss. Her.
Like what would it,
Meaning,
like because she was so sparingly used as a character to help develop Sinclair, what if they just removed her character from the narrative entirely? Would that have changed him?
I want to say yes, because their relationship complicates Sinclair's life a lot, at least on the outset. I mean, you see on his face a lot of things running through his mind when Garibaldi informs him that Sakai is on the station. He's just, oh my God, what do I do? There's a lot going on there. And so I love this added dimension to Sinclair. Without it, he's got plenty of other things going on. He's the station commander. There's plenty of other adventures he can have there. But I do love this added thing that it just makes him a fuller, more enriched character who has a relationship that is not perfect by any means. It's very complicated. It's very, it's left with a lot of indecision, which I feel like a lot of relationships, a lot of people can understand that, where you don't know where it's going. You don't know if it's going to work out. And so that's relatable.
Yeah, I agree. What I like about her. I was just throwing devil's advocate questions at you, but I
love it.
What I like about her relationship with him is that he's already questioning who he is, why he's the commander of the station by this time.
Yeah. And then add this
yeah.
onto it. Oh my God. Does your mind not spin?
Exactly. So it also does what I think that not a lot of science fiction shows do well, and they do it from the very beginning, is that they humanize their heroic characters very quickly.
Sure. And they fall kind of into this, the hero trope. They have to be perfect in a lot of ways.
Right. Their hair's perfect. Their teeth's perfect. Their relationships are perfect no matter who they're with. Right?
Yeah. And really, I mean, Sheridan was closer to that than Sinclair. Sinclair is a very complicated, very, you don't necessarily know where he's going with a lot of things just because he doesn't even know who he is a lot of times. And he's longing for answers. And as much as we learn, we don't necessarily get those answers for a long time.
Yeah. But I think it's just because he has a Minbari rattling around in his head.
And he doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beauty of that is that all the answers were there all along. It's just like him. We're putting together puzzle pieces. We don't know what we're even looking at until we have the complete picture.
It would have been so interesting, like if for some reason that maybe the last time, I don't know, that he saw Catherine, and knew that she was safe, like literally like physically saw her and knew she was safe, was on Mars, like sometime after the Battle of the Line. And they parted ways just very much like that, and that's why Garibaldi, like that would have been a great flashback, right?
It really would have been.
And then Garibaldi, and maybe she was walking out and Garibaldi gave her like an earful, right? And say like, look, the guy's just getting his life back together again,
and you got to come in here and mess it up.
Right.
Ooh. Yeah. Ooh, wow. Could you imagine? Yeah. Garibaldi running interference for Sinclair and screwing things up even further.
It could have been like what? Okay, so here's the last thing.
Okay.
What if like she was actually really sorry that she had to go, something like legitimately pulled her away from having for being able to make that commitment? And what if she had this, she goes, give this data crystal to Jeff, he's off doing something, and Garibaldi's like, okay. And then Garibaldi goes back and he hits the bottle at a bar or something like that and leaves it on a table.
Oh, Garibaldi!
Right?
Harsh.
I mean, no disrespect to the character, but he's pretty known for doing stupid stuff when he's 3 sheets.
Well, when you're an alcoholic and you are hitting the bottle hardcore, I mean, you make mistakes. We saw that in action in season 5. It would not be implausible, and Sinclair would be none the wiser.
Right.
But what if that wrecked things for a while?
Yeah. See, like there was like this whole thing. So there was this data crystal, right? And then, Jeff's off doing something piloty wise or putting down the Mars food riots or something important.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And then afterwards, like, oh, maybe he was trying to get her out of the riots.
Uh-huh.
And then, she took off and there was like a lot of unsaid stuff that she wanted to tell him. And then she says, I could go, here, I don't have time to tell him this. He's getting me off on the ship, but just give this to him. Just give this to him. And,
and then he gets drunk and loses it.
Or he gets drunk and gets so mad at how the way that she left things with him, or had a big fight with Garibaldi, saying like, you don't know our feelings toward each other. He goes, you're breaking his heart. It's like, he wants me to leave, yada, yada, yada. And then he just like looks at this crystal and he goes, plop, puts it in the drink and walks away.
Oh, shit. I'd rather it be an accident. I don't think Garibaldi would try to sabotage the relationship. Not really.
But what if he was so hammered that he did? Like he was just so angry.
Well, I mean, when you're totally hammered, you're going to make stupid decisions. That's a sober Garibaldi wouldn't do it. Let's put it that way.
No.
But an alcoholic, drunk Garibaldi is going to make mistakes. I still would rather it be an accident personally, just because he and Jeff are so tight.
You know how we could tie this all in?
How?
This is this will blow your mind.
Blow my mind, please.
So, what if at that very moment where she's taking off and Garibaldi is about to go deliver this thing and Jeff's not around, Uncle Mike watched his friend Frank blow up on that pad. Remember?
Uh-huh.
And he was so like, he just heard the news and he just went to a bar and got blotto and lost and lost the crystal in a bar fight or something.
God damn it. You're breaking my heart here.
But that would have tied in everything. It would have tied in. He would have delivered the crystal, right? He was like, I can't wait.
Yeah.
This is going to explain everything. Then all of a sudden he's like, and he gets a thing on the comm link. It's like, Frank just got, he just got killed. Someone like blew up his ship. And then he went to go, and then he went to go see Leanna Krimmer.
Yeah.
Or Leanna
my
Krimmer.
God.
And he's like, it's your fault, Uncle Mike. It's your fault. Then he went off. He has a thing in his pocket. He gets hammered and he gets like jacked. Like his card gets taken. His money gets
into
taken.
A bar fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden he gets, Jeff wakes him. It's like, Michael, what happened? He's like, and he forgets about the whole, right?
Oh my God. I can see this in my head. Oh my God. This is so good. Okay. The fanfic potential is high. We got to do the poll. And right now we've got to close out the show because we're over time.
I know.
But oh my God, this is good shit.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Fanfic. It's a beautiful thing. There's a reason why fanfic has been going on hardcore since, I want to say roughly the 1970s, because Kirk and Spock / fanfiction is really what got the ball rolling.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and fanzines.
I'm sure there was / fanfic with Holmes and Watson.
Probably. Rightfully so.
In Moriarty. Hey, we're talking about threes.
Yeah, there you go, baby. Menage a trois.
Drunk again, Uncle Mike. Oh.
Man. Drunken orgies are fun.
Man, I'm telling you. I mean, yes.
Okay, we are all over the place now.
All right. So I think it's time to wrap up shop. And again, for anyone who listens after the fact, please let us know whether or not your comments made it through. And if they didn't, copy those comments and send them to us on Twitter so we can answer them.
Yes, or you can also Gmail us, zocalomarketplace@gmail.com. If they're particularly long, like if they don't fit into a tweet, please do that. Let us know. We want to hear your thoughts. Please share with us what's going
Yes.
on.
And if you like what you've seen here or heard here on the Zocalo, please like, share, and subscribe. As everyone does on YouTube, they do this thing where they're
That's
pointing
right.
at the
Do all
button.
the things.
So you can
I
find
don't know
us.
why everybody does that, but we all do. Like point, point, point,
It's
point,
like point down at the bottom.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right. So you can, like I said, you can get in touch with us on Gmail. You can follow our Twitter feed at Zocalo Livecasts. You can also follow us. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I know,
Yeah,
Char,
I'm
you're
not.
not on Facebook, but Char, you're on Twitter at Oh the Profanity. I'm on Twitter at Lounge
Yes.
Lizard.
And we also have we still have our feed on Reddit. It's r/the Zocalo. If you just search for the Zocalo, you'll find it on Reddit. It's not a particularly active group, but please, by all means, let's get some activity going on in there. Put in your comments there.
And one thing
I'm reading them.
One thing I need to say is, like, I keep forgetting to bring this up, but one of our listeners, Brad Alexander, he sent me an email with a list of all of the actors and actresses or performers that have been seen between Babylon 5 and Star Trek.
Ooh. Oh, that's fantastic.
So I think if we do like our AMA show, or if we have kind of like an open format show, we can get into that email next show.
Oh, okay. Maybe we have a little bit of a feedback free for all, if you will.
We can have a Zocalo in the Zocalo.
How about that?
And props, because he's Rush fan too. He saw my shirt, my 2112 shirt from last show.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
good
rock
stuff.
On. All right, Char, I think that's it. Good show.
All right, buddy. Yeah, good show. A lot of stuff. I'm looking forward to everybody's feedback. I can't wait to hear it because it was sorely lacking tonight.
Yeah, but I don't think it's your fault.
It's not the same without you guys. We miss you. We love you. Yes.
So I've been Norm. She's been Char. And until next time here on the Zocalo, be seeing you.
Bye, everybody.